Special Issue Task Force, how can I help you? And back joining us in the studio for Special Issue Task Force is Hayoung. Hayoung, hello to you.
Hello, happy Tuesday.
Hey, can you dance?
꽁꽁 얼어붙은?
꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강 위에 고양이가 걸어갑니다.
You know, honestly, this is my first time hearing about this
Oh,
song.
you're worse than me. At least I knew this.
꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강 위에 고양이가 걸어갑니다.
How'd you memorize it already? That's not how you sing it, but how'd you memorize the dance already?
That's, I just saw it.
You saw it once and you did
once,
it?
yeah.
Man, I had to see it a couple of times.
I'm a professional dancer.
Yeah, I noticed that.
꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강 위에
But she can't sing
고양이가
though.
걸어갑니다.
She can't sing. She can dance, but she can't sing though. That's the thing. We've seen you. What is it? Dance before. Seyoung, when you were growing up, what was your favorite book?
Oh, my favorite book.
The Bible. The Bible.
Bible, of course, Bible. But the book that immediately pops up in my mind is 마당을 나온 암탉. It's like a children's novel, middle grade novel.
Okay.
Have you heard about it?
No, I
There's
didn't.
also like an animated version.
Oh, really?
Film. Yes, it's very touching and heartwarming. Animated version.
Oh, really?
Film. Yes, it's very touching and heartwarming. You should check it out. It's about a hen who wants freedom. 영어 제목, English title is A Hand Dreamed of Freedom, maybe.
A hen?
Hen.
Like a
Chicken.
chicken?
Yeah, 맘탉.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Can you look it up?
Is it
the
like
English title
is
of
it like
마당을 나온 암탉?
Is it like chicken soul for the chicken noodle soup for the soul or something?
Chicken
like?
noodle soup. No.
What is it? What is it again?
마당을 나온 암탉.
마당을
나온
Oh,
암탉.
there it is.
Yes,
there was
a
a movie.
Yes.
Okay.
But I highly recommend reading the novel first and then check the movie out.
Oh.
The hen who dreamed she could fly. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
She dreams her life beyond just farmyard.
Okay.
Yes, it's very touching.
So she doesn't want to be a mom.
She does. She really wants to be a
That's
mom.
why she wants to leave?
Yes.
To meet male
Because
chickens?
she was very unhealthy in the farmyard. So she wanted to she thought that maybe when she's out of the farmyard she will be healthier and be able to be a mom.
Oh, and meet guys.
Yes.
She has to meet the guy first.
You're
Rooster,
ruining it.
Meet the rooster.
She kind of adopts a child.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. We're all up for adoption, but if you want to meet roosters, Kayo Top 10, Anyang, Bamge Station.
Oh, you're ruining it.
Major story.
Very heartwarming novel, everyone.
major story making headlines. This is I saw this over the weekend. And I was like,
Very
what?
shocking, right?
Yeah. The mass detention of Korean workers at the Hyundai LG battery plant over in Georgia. This was also especially angering. I was especially angry because of who reported them, basically.
Oh.
Someone who wanted to run for office and bragging about how there was no jobs for the locals. Let's talk about this.
All right. It has been 5 days already since South Korean citizens were arrested and detained in Georgia. South Korea's foreign ministry has completed interviews with those in custody, and it has been confirmed that a significant number wish to return to Korea. And now going back to what happened on Friday, 475 individuals were detained in Georgia, about 300 of them South Korean nationals. And this marks the largest single-site immigration enforcement action in U.S. history. And most were engineers or technical specialists on short-term B1 or ESTA visas brought in for their advanced skills. And the arrests were carried out under U.S. immigration and labor law enforcement, mainly targeting alleged illegal stay or unauthorized employment. And while visa issues have been mentioned, experts point out that it's nearly impossible for such a large workforce to obtain H-1B or H-2B visas through the normal highly restricted process. The critics argue that since this was a state-to-state business agreement, the U.S. should have provided a clear legal pathway for these workers to stay and work long-term.
Well, I mean, the U.S. currently in a situation where ICE is also arresting people with proper visas. Yes, it is true that they overstayed their visas, but there was an application.
Right.
And that's the argument that's being made. A lot of people who are going, well, you should be applying for visas the proper way. Well, a lot of people who are applying for the visas the proper way and still had a valid visa, they're still getting arrested. And this is, again, and it's not even like they were taking their job. They were specially trained and they were training other American workers on how to go about working this job.
That's why many Americans are also angry because had the plant been completed and gone into operation, it would have created numerous jobs for Americans as
definitely.
well.
And I mean, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars right now. And you could kind of imagine how painful it must have been for the Korean community in the U.S. and also back here in Korea. What was the reaction like?
Well, the raid has deeply shaken the Korean American community, particularly around Pooler, Georgia, where many live and work. And some described feeling betrayed, targeted, and fearful for their safety. And back in Korea, there's a widespread outrage, and citizens feel a sense of betrayal, not just on behalf of the workers, but over broken trust in a close ally. And like I briefly mentioned, under the Biden administration, the U.S. actively encouraged Korean investment in advanced industries like electric vehicles and batteries, which led to Hyundai establishing this plant in Georgia. But though Trump took office later on and business agreements between countries just continue, and besides, Trump is the kind of person who encourages more investment and building more factories in his own country. But critics argue that Trump often treated South Korea as a money machine, not as a close, important ally or a respectful business partner. So what we see now is a sharp contraction, and these workers and companies were once welcomed as investors, and suddenly they became the subject of strict law enforcement.
I mean, Trump went as far as to call them illegal immigrants, right? And it's only been not too long ago that they had the meeting over in Washington, and things seemed very good. Some are even saying that maybe did they do this as a leverage for the Trump administration? No, it was literally, again, someone from Georgia, and it's well put by K-drama Karen, who decided they were going to report a bunch of Koreans who were working at this plant, not knowing that it was going to generate a lot of jobs if it was going to be in operation properly here. But the big criticism now, again, if you are overstaying your visa and if you are an illegal immigrant and so forth, there are people who are still trying to get the visas, proper visas. And I mean, this is a little bit of a sensitive issue for me because even for myself, I was once an illegal immigrant. I overstayed my visa, but I was lucky enough that I was sponsored through my grandfather who had a citizenship. I got my green card later on and then, got my my citizenship. But the way that ICE is dealing with this is the big controversy. Let's talk about the conditions of the detainees faced.
Man, many describe scenes of confusion and alarm. Some were shackled with handcuffs and ankle chains despite being illegally employed as specialists. And there have also been reports of poor heating and cooling, limited access to medication, and procedural violations like not reading Miranda rights, and the psychological toll has been profound. And the facility where the Korean workers are being held was already flagged in 2021 by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for poor conditions. And an inspection report at the time described widespread mold in air vents and showers, leaking ceilings with peeling paint, and toilets that often didn't work. So I was also able to see on the news people lining up, hoping see the detained workers in front of the Folkestone Immigration Detention Center. But even after waiting more than an hour, they were suddenly told by officials that all visits were canceled, and families and friends who had rushed there had to just turn away without even catching a glimpse of their loved ones. And the Korean employees are said to be wearing beige uniforms, usually reserved for low-level offenders, and are kept to a cell. But it's still a deeply humiliating and shocking experience.
No, it really is. It's gone this far now. I mean, is this going to impact... How is this going to impact the investment, right? Because Trump has been always going, invest.
The world is watching.
We want to invest in our country, and we're going to get Samsung and
Trump,
LG.
why did you do that?
We're going to bring in billions of dollars, but we also don't want any illegals, so goodbye. It's just,
Goodbye.
companies are not going to invest in the United States
No.
if this happens, right? There are contractors, there are contract workers and stuff like that. Tell us what the Korean government has done in response to this.
Well, Foreign Minister Cho Hyun, who was urgently dispatched to the U.S., is scheduled to meet with senior officials from the Trump administration to resolve the situation. Preparations for a charter flight are now underway, and efforts have begun to collect the passports of detainees who remained in offices or accommodations. And U.S. immigration authorities are reportedly still investigating many of those arrested, and departure will only be allowed once these investigations are completed. The restrictions, the registration of detention numbers of the detainees is expected to be completed soon, hopefully. And Minister Cho is expected to meet high-ranking officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as early as tonight or tomorrow morning Korean time. And final consultations between senior South Korean and U.S. officials are expected to determine the exact timing for the release and return of the detained Koreans. And Seoul previously has negotiated a voluntary departure arrangement which allows for a faster release compared to deportation or lengthy immigration trials. And Minister Cho's prior task is to ensure that the release of Korean nationals and their return by chartered flight goes smoothly without any last-minute hurdles by U.S. agency, and also to remove any re-entry ban or penalties.
So Seong did mention it, and our producer has also mentioned this too, but the big problem is that when the visa is about to get expired, they do reapply.
Yes.
But it's just that the U.S., their application process is so slow. And they're not approving that. The big issue that they had, there was a Korean American girl, Korean girl who had proper visas. I think it was a student visa. And she had, I think, months left in the visa left. But she went to reapply, as you would, if your visa is about to expire, and they arrested her. They're like, my visa is still valid. So it's
right. That's why I said it was almost impossible to obtain H-1B or H-2B proper visas because it takes long time and the process is really, really restrictive. So even though South Korean government required it for a long time, it didn't work out.
There's got to be huge diplomatic and business implications with this.
Right. President Trump called the workers illegal, but also insisted investments remain welcome. Comments critics see as tone deaf given the circumstances. And the project was part of a $12.6 billion investment, the largest in Georgia's history, and a symbol of Korea-U.S. economic cooperation now jeopardized. And Hyundai and LG have begun audits of employment practices, while lawmakers in Korea are calling for visa reforms to prevent future abuse.
Again, I mean, as a person,
want other countries to invest in the U.S.
That's the problem. Is that but when you do stuff like this, like who's gonna want to invest, right? Again, this is a very sensitive issue for me because as a person who also overstayed their visa and was undocumented for some time before I got my documentations. It's a very sensitive issue for me. We'll talk about other major issues at hand, but first let's take a listen to a song here from Hong Ishak with Ruin. And that was Hong Ishak with Ruin. We got a message in from Yang Gurun from Shanghai. He says, I hope the visa issue will be solved. I've actually had several final interviews with U.S.-based companies, but because of the H-1B visa quota so limited, I failed several times.
Yes, there's a quota.
You sure that's why you failed?
Oh, don't be too harsh on our listener.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely the quota.
Yes.
No, he was very talented. Although, I think, Yang-gurum, to be honest with you, I think there's a bigger reason why U.S. companies may not be hiring you.
But by the way, when you said Yang-gurum from Shanghai, you really sounded like Yang-gurum imitating you.
Yang-gurum from
Yang-gurum
Shanghai.
from Shanghai.
He was imitating me. Maybe working for a Chinese company is put you in a blacklist is what I'm thinking here.
Blacklist.
No, it happens because especially with the kind of stuff that he does, it's like highly confidential stuff. I'm not gonna say what he does, but I mean it's stuff like that. They might think he's a spy. They might think he's a spy. Second story. This is big. This is big. For the first time in 78 years, ladies and gentlemen, Korea's prosecution service, 검찰청, is being abolished. There's a bigger picture. Now, you might be going, whoa, abolish the prosecution? That can't happen. You have to know all the story before you jump into the conclusion here. Let's have you explain what's happening.
Yes, it's a landmark reform. The Lee Jae-myung administration has confirmed a complete reorganization plan. The prosecution service as an institution will disappear. But from now on, the power to indict will move to a new agency called the Public Prosecution Office, while investigation powers will be divided between the National Police and a new Serious Crimes Investigation Agency. So for the first time in 78 years in Korean history, the prosecution service, as we have known, it will cease to exist.
So the problem here with the Korean prosecution system is they just have all the power.
Right.
They have the power to do everything, which even if you look into the U.S.,
Very unusual.
it's very different.
Yes.
Which is why, like my cousin's a prosecutor at the Manhattan DA's office. And then my good friend, Billy, I think he might be tuning in. He's now training to be a investigator for the DA's office. They need him to all do all that stuff. So they share the power.
Right.
Here, they have all the power, which now leads to some issues here and there.
Right.
But again, for our listeners who may not be familiar with this current system here in Korea, let's talk about what makes Korean prosecution system so unique.
Well, Korea's prosecution service has long been unusual because it combined two powerful roles, investigation and indictment. In most countries, these functions are separated, like you said. For example, in the U.S., prosecutors mainly handle indictments while investigations.
Blackpink was shut down.
Oh, I love this song.
John over in DC says, Esha, why are you making Seong talk about such inflammatory topics? We should be talking about funny stuff. Her laugh
Funny
is
stuff?
infectious. Really? Her laugh is infectious?
Oh,
What do you want to do?
I'm laughing. You have to laugh too. It's infectious.
It's a different kind of infection. It's the bad infection.
꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강 위를 고양이가
That's not how you-
걸어갑니다.
That's not how you sing it. I can't believe I'm teaching.
Let's sing it.
I can't
Sing
believe
it. Teach me. I forgot.
꽁꽁. I have the lyrics. Hold on. Time.
꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강 위를 고양이가 걸어갑니다.
꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강 위로 고양이가 걸어갑니다.
Oh, it's
걸어다닙니다.
rapping. 걸어 다닙니다.
걸어다닙니다. 꽁꽁 얼어붙은 한강 위로 고양이가 걸어다닙니다.
얼어붙은 한강 위로 고양이가 걸어다닙니다.
I think I found someone who sings worse than I do.
I told you I'm tone deaf.
Oh my goodness. Let's just have you dance next time.
I proved it today.
Third story that we're going to talk about. We're going to go over to Beijing this time, where China held a large-scale military parade to mark the 80th anniversary of its victory in World War II. They call it Victory Day. Everyone has their Victory Day. Seong, what stood out from this year's event?
It was a highly symbolic occasion. The parade not only showcased China's military power, but also featured the participation of foreign dignitaries. One notable surprise was that North Korea was given unprecedented visibility. Kim Ju-ae, the 10-year-old daughter of Kim Jong-un, made what many are calling her diplomatic debut. For Pyongyang, this was a major upgrade in status on the world stage.
Can I just say this? She doesn't look like she's 10. She looks like she's like 20 something. She's tall.
She's I think this is international age, so she's
though.
older than that.
Still. I mean, international age is the right age. It's just she doesn't seem like 10. This also raises the question about the broader geopolitical picture, right?
Yes, this is where opinions diverge. On the one hand, the optics were striking. You had North Korea, China, and Russia projecting unity in front of the international community, and that certainty reinforces the perception of a bloc. But some experts caution against oversimplifying. For Beijing and Moscow, the alignment with North Korea is often tactical, not strategic, and they may not want to be looked into a rigid 3-on-3 confrontation, which could limit their diplomatic flexibility. So while the parade symbolized solidarity, it doesn't necessarily mean a permanent Cold War-style lineup is here to stay.
Russia. So
They don't want it.
Okay, so China and Russia were being a little bit, strategically ambiguous, right? And so, but then Russia, considering their situation right now with Ukraine, they're like, oh my goodness, no one's going to help us.
Right.
Let's get North Korea to help us because they're the only country that probably will help us, and they need a lot of money, blah, 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 right? So they finally, hand in hand, right? China, though, they don't want to touch Russia with a 50-foot pole. They are just historically friends with, what is it?
Soviet
North Korea.
Union.
With North Korea. Because think about it, like, all the trade that goes on with China and, the United States. I mean, China just give visa waivers to Korean tourists. North Korea should be very upset at this, but they're not. But they can't show that they're mad. They need China,
Right.
and China is just going to pretend that they're big friends with North Korea by inviting Kim Jong-un and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Where does South Korea fit into the shifting landscape?
Well, South Korea finds itself in a very delicate position. Interestingly, South Korea was the only country from a democratic camp to send an official representative to the parade. National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik was there, and that alone reflects Seoul's balancing act. Security is anchored in the alliance with the U.S., but the economy remains deeply tied to China. And this security with the U.S. economy with China formula has long been South Korea's approach, but under the Yoon Suk-yeol administration, relations with Beijing deteriorated sharply, and many wonder if the current government can restore that balance.
Crash Alright says, I think China wants North Korea's compliance. Now, China is basically using North Korea as a buffer zone.
Yes.
Not to say that China and South Korea are fighting, but there are U.S. troops in South Korea, which China really doesn't really like. And so they need North Korea as that kind of buffer zone. So they're using them for a geographic, strategic way there. This is very difficult. Like, so is this dual approach, security with Washington, economy with Beijing, still sustainable, though?
Well, it's very difficult for now. The U.S. is urging allies to reduce dependence on China, especially in advanced technology and supply chains. And at the same time, China remains Korea's largest trading partner, and Korean businesses rely heavily on the Chinese market. And the question is whether Seoul can maintain autonomy or whether it will be forced to choose sides more explicitly. And some experts argue the Victory Day parade shows why Korea cannot afford to drift too far from Washington, and others say Korea must keep channels open with Beijing precisely because of not only for economic reasons, but also its leverage over Pyongyang.
Yes. I know there's a lot of, far-right conservatives who just doesn't like China, but the fact of the matter is, it is a big trading partner.
Right.
It is a major part of South Korea's economy. It does bring in a lot of tourism. And so it's a country that you can't just skip out on. I don't know why you're making an enemy out of China right now, but still. But going back to Pyongyang, though, there was always the big question. I mean, North Korea is still a very patriarchal society, right?
That's
and so you would assume that because Kim Jong-un has a first child son, you would think that maybe he's going to be the next leader.
Right.
But Kim Joo-hwa has been appearing often.
Right.
Missile test and this test and this site. Like, she's always there. Tell us what this the appearance by Kim Joo-hwa in this event, though, tells us.
Well, it was more than just symbolism. Having a child appear at such a major international event signals Pyongyang's attempt to present her as the future of the regime. And it's unusual in diplomacy to feature someone so young, but the fact that she stood prominently with Chinese and Russian officials show North Korea's intent to institutionalize her image early. But many experts still also say, on the other hand, that all of this is still part of a strategy, and it is far too early to confirm Kim Joo-hwa as the successor. Nothing can be said with certainty, they say. In the meantime, for South Korea, this raises new questions. How should we interpret the next generation of North Korean leadership, and what does it mean for long-term inter-Korean relations? So stepping back on the diplomatic front, Korea now faces both risk and opportunities, we can say. On one hand, if global politics hardens into rival blocs, Seoul could be squeezed, forced to prioritize either security or economic survival. On the other hand, Korea's unique position, trusted ally of the U.S., but with significant economic ties to China, could give it a rare role as a bridge builder if managed wisely.
It'll be so funny. Kim Joo-hwa is like, Daddy, I would like to see K-pop Demon Hunter. Daddy, I would like to go to a BTS concert. Well, how would he answer to that?
Oh,
I wonder what would happen.
I heard Kim Jong-un is a huge daebabo, so maybe he will allow her to just watch.
Tree
Desperately
gets
want
executed
it.
if they watch anything Korean, but if his daughter wants to watch K-pop Demon Hunter and do the soda pop dance or whatever,
I
it's
want
okay.
to watch The Culture Inc.
Oh.
What if she
Daddy,
says that?
Daddy,
I
he
like
looks
SJ.
like you. He reminds me of you. Daddy, watch the Culture
I like
Inc.
the host of The Culture Inc. because he
I'm gonna
kind of looks like you, Daddy.
I'm gonna get sanctioned. Trump is gonna sanction this show soon. Seyoung, thank you so much for your insights and your take into all the major issues at hand. Have a fantastic rest of your week. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
All right, sending around the studios. Take a listen to a song here from Yunha with Parade.
Prosecutors also focus mostly on indictment, but in Korea, prosecutors have historically controlled both, and some describe it as having the powers of both the U.S. Department of Justice and the FBI in one organization, and this gave them enormous authority, but it also meant constant political controversy and public distrust.
Yeah, so indictment is one thing, but when you have the investigative powers, right? And the big hiccup, ladies and gentlemen, was when the former first lady,
Right.
there was a lot of evidence to
Evidence.
show that she was doing some bad stuff, and the prosecution, for some reason, who were investigating initially,
Right.
when Yoon was in office, did not find that she did anything wrong through their investigation. And mind you, Yoon had a lot of links with the prosecution as a
He was the
former
chief.
former chief of the prosecution.
Right.
And then all of a sudden later on, when you had, the special counsel probe happen, and all of a sudden, boom, there are all
Right.
these evidence. This is the
Right.
corruption we're talking about here. Speaking of which,
Exactly.
what brought Korea to the point of actually abolishing the entire institution?
It was a long process. For decades, prosecutors were accused of abusing their power, showing political bias, and failing to remain neutral. And public mistrust grew stronger with each high-profile cases, and calls for reform led to gradual changes first, limiting investigative powers, then setting up independent bodies to handle corruption. But those steps weren't enough, and now the government has decided on the most fundamental change, dismantling the prosecution service itself. And this isn't just an institutional change, it's being described as a historic turning point for Korean democracy, redistributing power more broadly across different agencies.
This was something that was being done initially at the former Moon administration.
they
However, he
failed.
backed off. Right, he backed off, and then
Right.
they
Another
saw what
incident
happened.
occurred.
There's big stuff happening over the past 3 years or so, and
Right.
then the E administration was like, no. We're going to go for it. How are people reacting to this?
There's a cultural layer to this. For many Koreans, the word 검찰 carries a long history of tension and even fear. The prosecution was seen as an elite, untouchable power center. So for some citizens, this reform feels like long-awaited justice and a hopeful reset. But at the same time, people are nervous, worried about confusion, turf wars, or whether new agencies can really function without leaving gaps in law enforcement. So there's a mixture of hope and anxiety.
How does this compare internationally then?
Globally, Korea's old model was truly rare, like I described previously. And Korea's combination of both powers in one institution has long been criticized as excessive. So this reform is not only significant domestically, but I believe it will also attract international attention as Korea finally moves closer to global norms of separating investigation from prosecution.
Like, it doesn't happen anymore. Maybe it doesn't, but you see in movies where
Right.
prosecutors be getting like boxes of apples. But not with no apples inside, and gangs.
Or just making up some stories.
Yes, and then gangs or gang members
right.
are always treating them out and stuff like that. There was too much. It was just too much power. It was absolute power, and they're just trying to.
Back in the days, even torturing and stuff.
So now they're trying to divide it. Right now, it seems we're seeing kind of the tip of it right now with the special counsel probe. And I think it's working out pretty well. But what challenges lie ahead with this transition, though?
Well, the biggest task will be coordination. Multiple new institutions now have to share power and work together, which could lead to overlap or confusion. And there's also the risk of a power vacuum if responsibilities aren't clearly defined. Above all, rebuilding public trust is crucial. Citizens will only see this reform as successful if it results in a fairer, more transparent justice system.
Exactly. All right. I mean, this is going to, I mean, there's going to be a huge backlash,
Right.
obviously. And,
From
you
the
know,
opposition party.
well, I don't know why the opposition party
course.
would, be, I don't know why they would be against this, but we'll see what happens. We'll continue to talk about some major issues at hand, but first, let's take a listen to a song here from Blackpink with Shut Down.